Daniel Nahmod. It's just a reminder that the purpose of prayer is to take us deeper into our own heart, to recognize that we are always connected with Spirit. So again, welcome. Thank you for joining us here at the Monterey Center this morning. For those who are gathered here in the center, those who are joining us via Zoom, on our Facebook channel, and also on our YouTube channel. We are delighted that you are here. We're continuing our May series, Raise Your Voice, recognizing the profound impact of self-advocacy, boundary setting, and conflict resolution on our personal and collective well-being. Today is part 3 of our series, and the title is Negotiating Peace, Conflict, Reconciliation, and Transformation. When we discover personal strategies for resolving conflicts in personal and professional relationships. Several years ago, when I was serving our organization as a regional support coordinator, there was a gathering of all of the coordinators that came together, and we did a 2-day course on conflict reconciliation as opposed to conflict resolution. And what I recall from that was the emphasis on the reconciliation part, and that's what I'm going to talk about this morning. And the reconciliation is coming together and healing those wounds, healing those issues, whatever it is that resulted in the conflict. And the resolution is the individual or individuals coming together in harmony. I think that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, coming together in peace and harmony. Whereas with conflict resolution, resolution sometimes calls for a compromise or a win-lose. So it's not always the healing process that results from that is desired. And so we're going to focus on reconciliation and transformation. There's a little prayer that I saw on the internet that I want to share with you. I found it humorous because it spoke to me at a very personal level. And it's a prayer for trying to stay off the internet. And this is offered by Nadia Bowles-Weber. And she says, I wrote this prayer this morning after waking up and mindlessly scrolling for 45 minutes. Then I went on a long walk around my neighborhood, trying to really pay attention for once. And the prayer begins, Almighty God, creator of all things, including all those spring flowers that I haven't spent enough time appreciating because I think for some reason the doom scrolling is a better use of my time. I've cut down some, but it doesn't seem to be enough. So I beseech thee to grant me the will to get off the internet more. You and I both know that the last thing I need is to watch another insane video, read another hot take, or buy more stuff, and I clean this up for service. But you can imagine the other S word. More stuff that I absolutely do not need. In your infinite mercy, guide me away from the virtual into the actual, from feared tomorrows into this only now. From what I see on the screen to what I behold in my life. From what I have manipulated to desire to what I am content to have. When my willpower fails me yet again, may the strength of your hand keep my own from mindlessly picking up my phone or opening my laptop. Guide me to what is most real because you know, O Lord, how unsuited my heart is for the artificial. And finally, in your infinite mercy, Forgive me for the hypocrisy of posting this online. There are certain elements of there that I really connected with. Ernest Holmes, our founder, offers this insight as we move into our talk for today. And this is from Richer Living on page 130. And Holmes wrote, "Deep within each one of us, there is a place of calm, peace, and security, where trouble and accidents do not occur, where truth and love reign supreme, and good is the only power. It is to this place that we go in the silence of our own minds daily to commune with the Spirit that is both around us and within us." And so Science of Mind teaches us that through active listening, empathy, and assertive, and I'm going to use the word compassionate communication, disagreements can be transformed into opportunities for growth. The art of compromise and negotiation creates harmonious and mutually beneficial solutions. And isn't that what we're about? Creating those harmonious relationships and connections in our lives so that we walk this journey in harmony and in peace and in love with ourselves and with each other. We say that we wish to see peace in the world. However, it must begin within. True peace can only be given from the abundance of peace within us. Individual transformation is required to achieve global harmony. And in our Centers for Spiritual Living, our overarching vision is a world that works for everyone. And I always add to that, exactly where they are. No change is required. This principle is particularly relevant today when leaders often advocate for peace while simultaneously engaging in actions that perpetuate conflict. To genuinely foster peace, we must recognize that conflict is not merely an external phenomenon, but a reflection of internal discord. I'll say that again. To foster peace, we must recognize that conflict is not merely an external phenomena, but a reflection of internal discord. Now, when I read this, I said, I don't know about that. And then as I took a breath and I just went deeper within, I go, as I reflect back on those areas of discord in my own life, I've been a contributor to them, even though I've been in denial about being a contributor. Science of Mind highlights for us the deep connection between our inner state and external reality. It teaches that our thoughts are powerful forces shaping our experiences. And so resolving conflicts is more than a tactical process. It is a spiritual practice that aligns with harmony, love, and unity. When we nurture thoughts of love and peace, we contribute to a collective consciousness of harmony, where positive emotions like fear and anger perpetuate divisions. When we nurture thoughts of love and peace, we contribute to the collective consciousness of harmony, whereas negative emotions like fear and anger perpetuate division. And so let us take a closer look at conflict resolution as a path to peace. And I begin with a description from the insights of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. about negative versus positive peace. And he distinguished between negative and positive peace by offering a profound perspective on conflict resolution and societal change. And this is what King says: negative peace refers to the mere absence of violence or conflict, The situations where tensions might be suppressed, however, underlying issues remain unaddressed. And an idea that came to mind, or an illustration of this, is in relationships where we go into the silent treatment as a way of punishing someone for whatever discord there may be on our own end, rather than being brave enough to have that conversation that initiates the dialogue and initiates a return to a peaceful existence together. Negative peace can be fragile, as it does not necessarily resolve the root causes of discord or injustice. It's a state where problems are temporarily quieted but not resolved. And then King describes positive peace as that which involves a deeper, more substantive transformation of relationships and societal structures. Remember that we are all in this together, that we move and have our very beingness in relationship with one another. You know, we each are individualized expressions of the divine, and we live and move and have our beingness in the divine, and yet we do not live in isolation. Positive peace is characterized by justice, equity, and the proactive promotion of well-being for all individuals. And I add to the list the spiritual practices of compassion, grace, unconditional love, and respect are elements of positive peace. Positive peace requires active engagement and action such as addressing underlying issues and implementing solutions. Now, we may not always have the bandwidth or the awareness of what the solution may be. However, through our spiritual practices, we're open to ideas for positive coexistence together. This can initially feel challenging or confrontational. However, it ultimately leads to a more profound and lasting harmony that isn't just relative to an individual or group oppression. And the second idea that I would like us to consider is the interconnectedness of inner peace and outer peace. And this is where we look at our ability to connect with inner peace and how it profoundly influences our reality. I'm reading this book by Don Jose Ruiz, and I was really attracted by the title. And it is My Good Friend, the Rattlesnake: Lessons of Loss, Truth, and Transformation. And the piece that I read recently that I think applies to our conversation today about the interconnection of inner peace and outer peace is a description that he offers of his particular way of identifying peace and finding peace for himself that is non-traditional by many standards and also traditional by many standards. And so I'm sharing from you the piece Heavy Metal. He says, one day a friend asked me to take him to my favorite place to meditate. I responded, sure. I'm going to the Iron Maiden concert tonight. I'll take you along. And just as a little bit of a backdrop, Don Jose is a lover of heavy metal. I see the frowns here. Bear with me. Jose, be serious, his friend said. I mean someplace quiet like a garden or a temple. I responded, I am serious. Just wait and you'll see. And so at the stadium where the concert was being held, I closed my eyes and swayed along to the music, feeling the incredible vibrations of the electric guitars, the passions in the singers' growls and moans, and the energy of the other fans. Soon, a sense of deep peace and unity came over me as I lost myself in the sound. Meanwhile, my friend watched me perplexed. He couldn't feel the peace that I was feeling. And he said, "Jose, there's no way I can meditate in this loud and crowded environment. I'm going home." My friend wasn't wrong. Neither was I. We just had different ways of getting to that place of peace and light. How many of us have different ways of arriving at the same destination? And sometimes we pause and criticize someone else for choosing a different route, and yet we wind up at the same destination. And as his story goes on, I'm going to give you a little bit more background. As part of his own transformation, Don Jose had spent time in an ashram in India and had left India and had returned to Tijuana and went back to a previous lifestyle, moved to San Diego with his dad, and began his recovery process, his own inner reconciliation process. And as a part of that, his Mama Gaia, his grandmother, was encouraging him to return to the Indian tradition that had meant so much for him. And so she gave him a set of white robes and a beautiful orange robe that she had sewn out of silk, and had him wear these and as he described it, this was an outer reflection of some inner choices that he had made. And so he shares this story. One day I took a trip to a large spiritual bookstore, a popular meeting place of the New Age community, and this is in San Diego. My long black hair was neatly gathered in a ponytail, and I was wearing my white robes. As I browsed the bookshelves, many people came to me and asked questions about life, assuming that I was some kind of a guru or a monk. They asked me about spirituality and the Indian tradition. They were all kind and attentive and showed great respect for the teachings I had to offer. Just a few days later, I went back to the same neighborhood in Los Angeles. I said San Diego. This was in Los Angeles. I went back to the same neighborhood in Los Angeles. However, I had attended a heavy metal concert the night before, and I still had on my black leather pants, a black leather jacket, and a black concert t-shirt. My tall black boots were wrapped in metal spires, and my hair was snarled and falling down over my shoulders. I walked past the same spiritual bookstore and decided to go inside. I strolled in and started looking around. This time, the people in the bookstore didn't even look my way, as they had a few days before. In fact, the only person who showed an interest in me was a security guard who began following me around the aisles. The other shoppers shot me disappointing looks, and I felt so uncomfortable that I left, making a mental note: appearances do not matter. How many times do we get caught up in appearances? Our inner peace and our outer peace wind up in conflict with one another because of the appearances. What happened, he asked. I was the same person on the inside. I had felt the same spiritual feelings at the metal concert the night before as I had at the ashram in India. Yet the people in the bookstore assumed I was a good-for-nothing metalhead who couldn't possibly have a legitimate reason for being there. I realized that if I had worn my white robes to the metal concert the night before, Something similar may have happened. The metalheads may have assumed I was a good-for-nothing New Ager who couldn't possibly have a legitimate reason for being at the concert. He goes on to tell us that everything is spiritual. The truth is that everything becomes spiritual when we give it our love and our attention. When we take time to see each other's clearly, our mutual respect for them increases. Of course, the same is true when we bring the quality of looking to ourselves. And this is where the inner reflection becomes important. How often do we disrespect ourselves, dwelling on perceived imperfections while failing to see the divinity within? How often do we question our own past, scolding ourselves for loving what we love or practicing what we practice? How often do we look at others, wishing we could be more like them? By looking back at ourselves, we love what we can, and we learn to respect our own past and appreciate the grace that we were present all along, this grace that never leaves us. And our third aspect this morning is the role of responsibility in achieving inner peace. I go back to Ernest Holmes in the writings of Living the Science of Mind on page 157. And he says, if we could come back to see the life that is like, if we could come back to see that life is like a mirror, tending to reflect back to us the images of our own thinking, then we should realize that by changing our thinking, we can change our reflections in the mirror. Personal responsibility is the foundation for achieving positive peace. And this is what Don Jose was saying to us. And it is what is leading us and inviting us to practice conflict reconciliation and transformation. Taking personal responsibility means acknowledging our contributions to discord and then taking proactive steps to address and amend them. It requires us to engage in self-reflection, recognizing how our actions, words, and attitudes impact others and the broader environment. And I would like for us now to engage in a little practice right here. I invite you, if you're willing, to close your eyes or allow your gaze to drift downward, and to bring to mind someone that you previously had a conflict with that is not yet resolved, or someone that you are currently having a conflict with. Just call them to mind. Don't focus on the why or the pain of the conflict. Surround the individual or the experience of the situation in the light of love. Send out the vibration of calm and the energy of peace. Recognize that there is no fixing required of the other person or the other experience or of yourself. Lifting them into the light of love doesn't require that you even have to speak to them. All that is required is that we send the energy of love. And as we bring our awareness back into the space, this leads us to our conclusion this morning. When we appreciate as a spiritual practice conflict, reconciliation, and transformation, we acknowledge the presence of God in this place, and it becomes the norm rather than the exception. For all of the problems or perceived problems we experience, there is still the presence of God in this place. And this place is within our own hearts. It is within our own being. This is not a one-time achievement. It is a continual process of nurturing and sustaining inner and outer peace and harmony. And I invite us now to say our weekly affirmation together. The words will appear on our screen, and we'll say it twice. I trust the wisdom of my heart. It knows the way, even when the mind is clouded by doubt or confusion. I trust the wisdom of my heart. It knows the way, even when the mind is clouded by doubt or confusion. And I invite us to pray together. And as I begin this prayer this morning, I lift up our own Reverend Tony Bradford, part of our ecclesiastical team that represents us in Palm Springs, giving gratitude for his safety in the midst of an explosion that took place in Palm Springs yesterday. Reverend Tony shared with me that his apartment rattled a little bit, but there was no damage. And so we bring peace into that situation. We bring peace into the individual who was responsible for the explosion. We bring peace into the hearts and the minds and the lives of those who were impacted by the explosion. I also lift up my colleague, Reverend Celeste Frazier, who recently accepted a new position at the Center for Spiritual Living in St. Louis. And St. Louis was ravaged by a tornado. Reverend Celeste reported that she is safe and that there are members of her community that are safe. And so we send our love out into that community. We send our love, we send our prayers, we send our blessings into communities where disruption and discord is taking place all over the entire planet. Recognizing that when there is peace in my own heart, then there is peace in the world. And so what I know to be true this morning is that there is only life. That life is God's life. It is whole, it is perfect, it is complete. And it shows up as harmony and as perfect peace in all places and at all times. I also know that I am one with this life. I'm an individualized expression of it. And this is true for each one that is gathered here in our spiritual community, by whatever medium you're joining us. And it is true for all people in all places. There is only one thing happening on the entire planet, and that is God expressing as love. And so we embrace that love. We embrace the harmony, we embrace the peace, and we move into that place where we can release any discord that is present in our own lives. And so I shine the light of love, I shine the light of joy, I shine the light of reconciliation, I shine the light of transformation, knowing that as I move through this life experience, each day is a new opportunity to live from a place of grace, to forgive myself for whatever transgressions that I have made, and to recognize that I learned from those so-called transgressions, and that I am not bound by whatever error I have made. And as this is true for me, I know that it is true for all. And so from this place of love, from this place of reconciliation, from this place of transformation, we lift those who are experiencing transitions in their lives. However the transitions may be showing up, knowing that the prayers of those who are practicing right living are always answered. And that the prayer for healing, the prayer for peace, the prayer for love is that which prevails. And so as we walk this path together, as we acknowledge the awareness of the living spirit that resonates with each one at the heart level, we acknowledge the multiple paths that lead back to the one source. We call it good, we call it God, and we know that it is absolutely working for the highest and best for all that are involved. And so for this and so much more, I give thanks. Releasing this word into the law, which always says yes, I just allow it to be so. And if any of what I've said resonates with you in any way, I invite us to affirm it together by saying, and so it is. And so it is. I pause this morning again to just acknowledge the presence of spirit that is in this place. And I pause to acknowledge a prayer request that finally showed up in the prayer box. Thank you to the anonymous person who left a prayer request there, and I encourage more so that as we come together as a community, as we come together in harmony and in peace and in love, we know that everything is happening for our highest and best good. And now it is time for us to engage in our offering, in our practice of sharing our abundance. And we have an affirmation of abundance that is on our screen. I invite us to read this together. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And thank you for the ways that you continue to support our spiritual community. And for those who are in our viewing audience, the ways to contribute and donate to our spiritual center are listed on the screen. You may mail in your donations, you may text to give, or you may also contribute via our website. And as the greeter passes the offering basket here in the center, I appreciate your contributions that sustain the ongoing growth of our community. Thank you to those who contribute through our online donation program, and thanks to those who continually mail in their donations. We appreciate it. We thank you for your support. I invite you to see our newsletter, and you may sign up for the newsletter at our website, montereycsl.org. There are past issues, the current issue as well as past issues of the newsletter are online and available for you to be current with the events that are happening here at the center. For those of you who live locally, we invite you to participate. For those of you who may enjoy some of our online activities. We invite you to participate. And if Monterey happens to be a destination for you, we invite you to join us here physically in person at our center at 400 West Franklin Street in Monterey, California. We invite you to return next Sunday as we go to part 4 of our May series. And our title is Overcoming Silence, Individual and Collective Liberation. Don't miss out on this opportunity to unlock the potential of your voice for a more connected and just world. We are raising our voice to know that we are one with Spirit and that we are living in love and light. And so to our members viewing via Facebook and viewing on our YouTube channel, we say God bless you, we love you, and we will see you next time.